It is just a start for HERE to make its mark on history like Cisco has done in the past. We want to create an autonomous world for everyone. The only challenge we have, as in any company, is having the right people. It's all about talent. Competition is never a focus point. Competition is to keep score.
Edzard, good to meet you here at the HERE offices in Eindhoven, the Netherlands. HERE is a company which originated from Navtec and Nokia Maps, spun out of Nokia and acquired by the three major car manufacturers from Germany, BMW, Audi and Volkswagen. Yourself, you're coming from Cisco, a very dynamic company. Can you tell us what HERE is all about and why you took the CEO role?
You know, Cisco has been always an unbelievable experience for me. I've been there for 16 years. I started running the Netherlands as a general manager, then moved up the ladders and did a lot of work in Europe, Middle East and Africa. Run the commercial business, the channel business, strategy and operations. Then got a phone call how good my Japanese was and basically found myself in Tokyo 3 weeks later, 3.5 years, unbelievable experience, led the Japan theater for Cisco. Must have done something well and then got rewarded to run Asia Pacific, so spent a couple of years more out of Singapore, which was an amazing period. And then my last role was a member of the operating committee of Cisco and running their global services, which was about a $12 billion business with over 25,000 people in the disciplines of technical services, professional services, consulting services, cloud, all of that. So, you know, when you've done that, you've seen big, right? You've seen scale, you've seen a global capability of one of the, I think, best led companies in the world. And for me, HERE represents all of that, but at the start of the journey at Cisco. It has a massive technology revolution. Think of that as the internet. It has the technical capabilities to very quickly start to move into these new environments. It has a global footprint, although not the size of Cisco. Yeah. It has installed base and scale. And it has a purpose, because the first use case is autonomous driving, which is the end-to-end mobility play that everybody wants to go in there. And it has a lot of powerful investors behind it. So all the ingredients are there to have HERE as the current company potentially become as large as a Cisco has been in the internet domain. Hopefully HERE, under my leadership and the team here, will become that in the autonomous world.
You just explained what HERE is positioned. It's in the center of the automotive industry. It's in the center of the mapping of the world, navigation. Those markets are changing really quickly, really dynamically. How can HERE lead this forward and define the industry going forward?
You know, if you think about HERE, HERE's at a cutting edge of technologies, right? For the last 30 years, HERE has moved from paper maps to digital maps, 2-dimension, basically in standard definition. And we've been able to create a world in a digital format that is now the de facto standard for everybody that navigates around the world. Whether you're using Facebook or you're using Microsoft or you're using Amazon or you're using any of the big names, they are all using the map content of HERE. But now moving forward to the point you're making, this is the epic center of technology. Computer vision technology, artificial intelligence, deep machine learning, neural net technology, quantum computing. Yeah. It's all happening under the remit of what HERE technology is doing in the field where many other technologies are playing. Think of terabytes of data that a car is pushing out real time into a cloud. How do you solve that? Well, you need hyperscale fabric compute layers to start thinking that through. You can't do that in traditional mainframe or client server. You need to have a fabric that you can start to drive these cars through, and simultaneously, depending on the service you're taking, the car knows exactly what to provide to you and what not to provide to you or to a cloud service. Build that on steroids into solutions where in the next couple of years from now, drones will need to fly through buildings at millimeter or centimeter precision. You need navigation technology for that.
What is your dot on the horizon where in 10 to 15 years from now, HERE has changed how we live? And what are the changes you have to take and have to bring to the company to actually make that happen?
Well, if you think about here in 10 years from now, we have actually a pretty ambitious goal. We want to create an autonomous world for everyone. And what that means is, if you dare to dream for a moment and you see that man and machine interfaces are getting more tightly coupled going forward, and there's a whole new way of thinking about how machines, think of a car, think of a drone, think of advanced robotics for elderly, can help you in your day-to-day environment. And I know sometimes for people that's hard to imagine, but it's just around the corner, right? There are places in the world, and the Valley is one of them. In India, there's many places and other high-tech campuses around the world, where in their laboratoria, we have already these kinds of solutions be there. Now, if you now think about navigation, right? Navigation was static in a car. What about navigation that drives autonomously? So it helps the car to move from A to B. That's the core technology we have. Now embed that technology into everything.
Okay.
Just imagine. That means you're now creating a city operating system. You're creating a country operating system. You're creating an end-to-end capability where everything and everyone navigates through their daily lives. That's how big this can become.
Okay, and how do you make it happen from where you are now to there? What are your major challenges?
The only challenge we have, as in any company, is having the right people. It's all about talent. Right? If you have the right people with the right motivation, with the right experience, and you empower them to do what they do best, then they will deliver outcomes that will surprise you in the most positive way. So my focus is on talent. My focus is to create an environment in the business that they feel coming almost like at home, in a working environment where they want to produce, where they want to put their best ingenious ideas forward to help here technologies excel in any front, in any competitive situation, and position us as the next generation market leader around autonomous things.
So what are your major levers you have, apart from the people, to make that change? And how are you influenced by your competition?
You know, competition is never a focus point. Competition is to keep score. Okay, that's the number one lesson I learned from great leaders in the industry that build great companies. So let's put that aside. What is it you can influence and what you can really control are the following things. You need to create a culture where people really feel that they can bring the best and the brightest ideas. And they get rewarded for those ideas because they're helping the company to move forward. That's the talent play. But then you're also, when you start to compete in a world where your competitors are really powerful companies, you need to make sure that you build alliances. Alliances strategically, so in partnerships, but certainly as important alliances in investors. And for those of your viewers that have followed us for the last year, we have been very fortunate to embrace Intel as one of our major investors. Tencent, Navinfo is one of our major investors. And those that don't know Tencent is one of the largest e-commerce internet companies in the world. We're about to announce another set of investors, and they bring hundreds of millions of dollars and euros towards the investment profile of the company. So now you have the talent, you have the strategy, and you have the investment portfolio to start making some very interesting moves very quickly. That's how you accelerate a company, and then, as I said earlier, you keep score with competition. That's all you do.
But they also bring non-executive directors. Are they in line with your vision?
Absolutely. And that's part of the reason why we selected them. So if you think about where HERE wants to play, we want to build a third stack. On the infrastructure layer, which is clearly where Intel with their cloud management and their IoT capabilities is playing. On the platform layer, and watch the wire there. And then going forward on the applications and business process layer, which is where Tencent comes in. Apart from that, we've built strategic partnerships with Navinfo, who is, the best way to put it, the HERE of China. And we've built a strategic partnership with IPC Pioneer, which is the HERE of Japan. So we're the only company that can now offer a standard definition map globally. And the three of us have a strategic partnership to define the next generation standards for high definition maps indoor and outdoor. Now, that position in the next couple of years will help us to create an immense amount of new business models going forward, whether that's in automotive, whether that's in logistics or transportation, in retail, or in the consumer space in at large. We had a market where we were operating in a niche and it was hard to enter. Today that is in parts true, but in most of the cases we are facing a whole set of new competitors. So let me explain that a little bit. In the traditional world, you had basically 2 or 3 companies that were able to capture the world digitally as we've done. And we have turned in that particular phase of the business as the #1 market leader. We have about 80% share in every car that's driving around with navigation software. So the team did a very good job. Having said that, as this moves to high definition maps and 3-dimensional maps, many other companies are starting to see that this is far bigger than just navigation. Companies like Google, companies like Uber, all the big names are out there. And they're building their own maps, they're building their own capabilities. And why is that? Well, if you think about autonomous cars and the end-to-end mobility that it provides, this is probably the biggest, if not bigger than the internet build-out, because you're now going into the automotive industry, into the mobility industry, in the transportation industry, in the tourist industry, in the logistics industry, etc., etc., etc. If you think about a world where location will determine any asset out there and you overlay any business model on top of it, you have an opportunity to optimize the utilization of that asset, track and trace that asset, and build completely new business models going forward. So yes, your question is right. In the past, it was a navigation industry, narrow, couple of players. Tomorrow, it's the mobility end-to-end industry.
Yeah.
Everybody wants a piece of that.
Edzard, you're the CEO of HERE.
Yes.
What's the history of HERE? Where did it come from?
You know, HERE has a very interesting background and history so far. About 30 years ago, it was founded in Chicago, actually. And it was a company called Navteq. And Navteq was probably the first pioneer when it came to navigation systems. And basically, Navteq did very well, had an IPO listing on the stock exchange, and became a multi-billion-dollar business around the globe and the de facto standard for navigation technologies going forward. Then it basically got delisted. It got bought by Nokia. Nokia invested in other companies like Gate 5 in Berlin and Medio in Seattle, which is an analytics part, to really put location-based services on top of their mobile phone business.
Yeah.
And of course, we all know the story. Mobile phones didn't go that well at a certain time, and basically Nokia decided to sell off their division to Microsoft. And then it was decided also to put the HERE activities for sale. That was around 2015, and then a German consortium, which is the first time in history the German car industry grew up together and said, we want to buy this asset because it was foundational and strategic for highly autonomous driving vehicles. Made a bid, and in the end won against major competitors out there. And as of December 4th, 2015, it became an independent company owned by the 3 car OEMs, Daimler, Audi, and BMW. And that's, in a nutshell, who we are.
Fantastic. Edzard, thanks.
Thank you.